If you have the hubcap on the wheel, go ahead and remove the little caps that hold it on with a 19mm socket. Set this aside, then take off all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts, and then we'll take the wheel off. Start by removing this nut here that holds the brake hose onto the strut. 10mm socket, and then with a little hammer you'll have to push the stud in a little bit. That should unlodge it. Pretty stuck in here. There we go. Now with a 15mm socket, I'm going to take these 2 bolts out and take the caliper with the bracket directly off of the knuckle. Leave this in a couple threads, that way it holds the caliper as you take off this top one. Take the bolts out. Watch out, the caliper is going to want to fall. Bring it up, and I like to just set it right here on top of the strut. That way it's being held on and it's not putting any pressure on this brake hose. Take your rotor off. Take off this 36mm axle nut. You'll need a deep socket for this because the axle sticks out quite a bit. The next thing you want to do is to make sure that the axle pushes through the hub. This one's pretty stuck in here. Take a punch and a hammer, punch the axle through. Now this thing is not budging and I need it to budge. So I'm going to put the axle nut back on. I'm going to make it flush with the axle, just like this. That way I have a nice flat surface to hit on and I'm not going to damage threads or anything like that. Now I'm going to take my bigger hammer and give it a couple of good whacks, and that should hopefully break it free. All right, that pushed through. It's broken free now, that's good. I'm gonna spray it with some rust penetrant, hopefully help it along by the time we take this wheel bearing off. Don't forget to unplug your ABS sensor before you continue. Pull down on this tab, push the connector back, and unplug it. Now we just have to unclip this from its bracket. Take a pair of pliers, squeeze the 2 ears, and push it through. Now on the back side you'll see 3 13mm mounting bolts. You'll have to use a swivel. Let's remove those 3. There's one. There's the second. The third one's on this other side. There's the third one. Axle still pushes through, that's perfect. Now take a hammer and hammer the wheel bearing side to side, top and bottom. Basically just walk it off of here. Coming out, so make sure you hold it. Push the axle through. There it is. Get this ABS sensor out of here. There's your old wheel bearing hub. At this point, you'll notice that this surface is pretty dirty, so I'm going to have to clean it off. The way I'm going to do that is with a little sanding disc. Just make sure it's nice and flat, that way the new hub can mount properly. And make sure you clean inside here as well. Spray it down with some brake parts cleaner. That way you rinse off any debris that is on here. Let's dry it off. Now you want to take some anti-seize, apply it to everywhere where we cleaned up. So I'm going to go inside of this ridge here. And of course on the outside here where the bearing is going to sit. This will prevent further corrosion from happening. And I'm also going to apply it to the splines of the axle. And that will prevent the axle from getting stuck inside the hub in the future. Take your new hub, make sure the ABS sensor is going towards this side where it needs to connect in. Slide it over the axle into the knuckle here, and it should slide in with ease. If it doesn't, it probably means you didn't clean up the knuckle enough. There we go. That's just seated and bottomed out. it won't stay because the axle's pushing it out. Let's start in the bolts. I'll start by starting this bolt in. Line up the holes, slide this through. Now if you're going to put anything on these, I would suggest thread locker over anti-seize or grease, just because you want these to lock in tight. All right, these two are started. Let's start the other one. Snug them up. 85 foot-pounds for all three of these bolts. All right, this top one I can't get with my torque wrench just because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with a deep socket, doesn't fit with a shallow socket, so I'm gonna skip torquing that one and I'll tighten it up with my air gun. But I will torque these two bottom ones. All right. That should be nice and tight. Put the axle nut back. Let's bottom it out and then torque it. You'll see me tighten it with my air gun, but I'm not actually torquing it with my air gun. I'm just gonna use this to get it close faster. All right, let's torque it now. 159 foot-pounds is the torque. I'm gonna use my pry bar to hold the lug studs, and that's gonna prevent the hub from spinning. That's it right there, perfect. Grab your ABS connector, let's connect it. Let's coat this hub in anti-seize. That way rust doesn't build up in the future and the rotor doesn't stick onto the hub in the future. A thin layer all around will do the trick. You don't need a ton. Try to avoid getting it on the lug studs if possible. And if you get a lot on there, just wipe it off. Take your rotor, slide it on. Take your caliper, flip it over, put it on the rotor. Get the mounting bolts, snug these up, and we'll torque them to 96 foot-pounds. Don't forget to put this retainer back for the brake hose. Slide it onto the strut, start on the nut, and snug it up. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds. And if your vehicle came equipped with these hubcaps, make sure you line up this hole with the valve stem. Slide them on, line up all the lug nuts with these caps, and then just tighten this on. This is what holds on the hubcap, so you want to make sure that it's tight, otherwise it'll go flying off the road.